Hi, guys. My name is Matthew Preston, and welcome to the Limitless Podcast. Joining us, as always, is your co-host, Dr. Thaon Simms. Hello to people, Thaon.
What's up, guys? How y'all doing?
And today we'll be talking about, well, I guess you can probably tell from the title, how to research a stock, right? We've been, I guess, doing a different series now, let's call it. Like we did how to pick a stock, and then we did when to sell a stock. So now we're going to do, okay, what are some of the things that you look at, when researching a stock? And you're saying, okay, I'm looking to possibly buy this company or maybe even sell, I guess, And so I guess it could consider it like a spin-off of our Tickle Series. Called the Tickle Series, we try to review listed companies. So we talk about, you guys are probably, if you've watched the episode before, you'd see the kind of things that we look at with the company and stuff. So we're just trying to try to show, I guess, formalize that a bit. And yeah, we'll see how this goes. How are you feeling about this one, Thaon?
I'm feeling okay. I think it's very, very important because the research in the stock will tell you when to buy and when to sell the stock. That's where
And
the
that's
profit is made.
just even in any investment class at all. It's really the research, the information you find. Because even if it was real estate, you want to do some real research on the property, maybe the developer, the location, the plans. Just the same concept is really just research.
Yeah.
So I think some of the things we're going to talk about could apply just in general, in investing.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And I think with our, as you said, rightfully said, with the Tickle Series, the Tickle Series really shows how, it's a way for us to present how we research our stock. It's not exactly how we research a stock, but it's definitely a way to present it. So I think if you guys, head on over to that series, you guys will get a fair enough understanding as to how we research a stock and so on. But yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah. So
what was the last stock you researched, by the way?
As in read anything about? I was reading about
properly done a deep dive.
Which tickles did we do recently?
We did several. I don't know.
I was doing some research on SVL today.
Okay.
They had there was a Mayberry investor briefing. They brought on. Well, it wasn't really. I guess it was not just SVL, but they brought on the founders of Kia, basically a company that SVL and Mayberry separately, I guess, have invested in. And I was trying to, I guess, understand the business more, and then trying to say, okay, how could that? Because I think Mayberry Group Limited and SVL both listed on the JSE. They have stakes in Kia World.
Yeah.
And Kia World is a growing company, and then eventually Kia even wants to list on, I guess I don't know if it's a US stock exchange or some other stock exchange. And so then Mayberry and SVL could book a gain on that. So I was trying to see, okay, how I was trying to, I guess, value the company and look at some of the different information out there and such. So yeah, I was doing that today.
Okay. I also saw that episode. Decent episode. Hopefully the Kia guys can come on the podcast one day. We'd love to see it. So if you guys are watching, you're probably not watching. I hope you're all running the company too. But if you're just, taking a break and things, yeah, we'd love to have you guys on.
Yeah. So, I think one of the most important things that we said, well, as we said, like you want to try to find information, right? And so there's a lot of different sources for the information, the companies legally every quarter they have to put out financial statements that speak to how much profit they made, how much loss they made, how much assets they own, how much money they owe people, different things. They have to also put out notices to say, okay, we bought this company, we bought this loan book, we opened this gas station, we sold this subsidiary, we sold this company. So they put out like official notices to the stock exchange. They also, every company has to put out a report every year, an annual report to talk about other things going on in the company. Every company has to have a shareholder meeting. So those are like almost like, I guess, the primary sources. And then I guess also investor briefings too. Investor briefings sometimes, because they'll bring on the CEOs, just like we're saying with Keo. Yeah, so those are like almost like, I guess, primary sources. And so these, I think the analogy I was thinking about was like, if you ever played like Chinese telephone as a kid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Everybody loves
And
that.
then you start out with the message, it's one message, and it's like by the time it go around, completely
Mm-hmm.
different message. And I think that applies to investing too, because you can get it from the primary source. And for even depending on how you even consider it, maybe even what the company is telling you may not be the true primary source. So maybe the true primary source would be actually going to the supermarkets or going to the stores, going to the branches, talking to the workers. Maybe Fontana, you go to the branch, ask them, okay, how has business been doing? How is what's that products they were launching, the Aura or something like that, the makeup
Or
stuff?
yeah, that's the whole
Maybe
luxury.
actually going to the branch and looking, okay, how are they selling and things like that. But what I
Fenty.
think is that, yeah, like the
Yeah.
concept is try to go as close to the source as possible, because what you could end up happening sometimes when you're reading, say, like if you think about it, the major papers, the Gleaner, the Observer, websites, Our Today, Taking Stock, sometimes what they're doing is not, sometimes they'll have interviews directly with like the managers of the company, where you can get information that isn't in the reports. But sometimes they are just literally copying what they're seeing from the article, from the reports yourself. So if you don't read the report yourself, sometimes the person could make a mistake, and it's an honest mistake. They misinterpret something. They take off a zero here. They misinterpret this. And then
Yeah.
you could go and read the article and say, oh, that's going to happen. Oh my gosh, that's good. And you could want to buy the stock. And that isn't true. Or you may say, yo, I'll go sell the stock. Like, what if, for example, when the notice about Dolphin Cove came out recently, where like the parent company was going bankrupt? What if when you read the article, it's almost like you interpreted, oh, the company itself is gone bankrupt, so I'm going to sell everything, and then you sold, and then you find out, wait, no, if I'd maybe read, I mean, I think the company took a while to post a notice, which was probably bad on them, but looking for things like that, trying to go as close to the source as possible.
In fact,
And
I'll do you
even
one
all.
better.
Mm-hmm.
You remember it, when Michael Lee Chin said he would be the most significant investor in the APO. All right. And it's funny because I don't think he invested in the APO at all, because his shareholdings didn't increase,
Mm-hmm.
but he didn't really lie. You get me?
Mm-hmm.
Like he is an investor in the company, and he is significant. Yeah, because he holds like a top 10 stake. So like but it's funny that you say a lot of those things, because it's where you get your information from. You really and truly
Mm-hmm.
have to evaluate your sources and evaluate them
Mm-hmm.
carefully, like
Mm-hmm. And
very,
then
very
also,
carefully.
you always want to double check too, because the
And
source
triple
can be
check.
wrong, and it's not, yeah, double triple check. Because even maybe the company, like sometimes a company will put out a report, and then there sometimes can be even errors where they have to repost and say, oh, we made an error here. So you always even have to have, like, put a little grain of salt to almost anything you say. You still have to
Anything.
always be somewhat careful. Or even like, even people may listen to us, like I could say, oh, I read this article, this happened. All right, one of the reasons that I always try to show the articles or the sources is because I don't want to
Misquote
misquote
you.
something. So I
Oh
think
yeah.
we just recorded um when to sell our stock, and there was a point I made about JFP saying that, oh, they bought a stake in like Total Office. And I tried to pull it up and show it, because I was like, hey, I don't want someone to think that I'm lying based on what I try to always show it. So even us, we always try to share the source. Don't just listen to what we say, actually double check it and say, hey, all right, what they're saying is right. Because I
Yeah,
don't
because we
know,
could be wrong.
yeah, definitely, I'm sure we've been wrong before, and we'll be wrong in the future. If I make a mistake, I'd love if you guys would comment below and say, hey, you messed up here. um
Yeah, we would
but yeah,
actually
just think.
appreciate that. We would definitely
Mhm,
appreciate, because we've never claimed to be, pundits in this area, or this is just us
mhm,
chatting.
mhm,
So we've never claimed to be like, oh, investment gurus and the top
mhm.
analysts, or we're on it like David Rose, who always just medicine stocks and medicine the numbers and writing Gleaner Observer articles, I should say, and so on. we're not like that at all. But we do try to research well. So I do agree with a lot of those things. Where do you get your sources from?
You mean sources?
Like, what are your, so whenever you're researching a stock?
Well, the same stuff we're saying. So the company's financials, notices they put out, annual reports.
We get all of those actually from My Money JA. So guys, use code Limitless whenever you're signing up for My Money JA. You know, LIMITLESS. It gives us a decent little food, so we do appreciate that. If you guys ever sign up, and it gives you a nice little discount. So yeah, cheers to that. But yeah,
I watch investor briefings. Like I just mentioned, I was watching the one of the things that I don't always have to watch it live. You know, I love that they leave a lot of them to record. Like I think, for example, today I think RPL had a earnings call. I never watched it, but I'll probably like go through a transcript or something of it to see if there's anything. And I try to sometimes go to the website of the company. I go to the actual company or go to the
their
like
AGMs.
if it says something that
could also go to their AGMs.
I've gone to a few. Yeah, I've been going to a few more recently. I have a little more time, and I think
but not necessarily saying I'm just saying for everybody else. Like that's also a great way to get a lot of. Sorry, yeah. I'm just saying going to AGMs is a great way to get a lot of information because you are not only yes, you have to kind of be a shareholder. You know, especially when they're asking a lot of questions. But if you have questions, ask, demand it of you know, the CEO, the COO, everybody else that's there. Demand it of the board as well, because that is your right as a shareholder, right? You literally have, you know, voting rights. You have actual rights as shareholders. So a lot of people do and really and truly need to exercise those rights a lot more. So that's a good way to learn a lot more about the company, right? Because if you are researching the company and let's say you're wondering, what's happening with this deal? Like same thing we were talking about with JFP and Total Office. If you're an astute investor, ask them about the deal. So, you guys put out a Gleaner article saying, you know, by summer, XYZ going to get done. When is it actually going to happen? How far along are we with those things? Like what has actually been done? You know? So if you really and truly are researching a company, highly suggest going to, because if you look at a lot of the AGMs, you'll see a lot of, or even investor briefings or something, you'll see a lot of Limitless podcasts asking questions because we want to know. We want to know for our pocket. We want to know for your pocket, right? We also want to know, and that's a form of research as well. Because how else? We have to get answers somehow. When Google fails us, when all of these things fail us, at least we can talk to the real people and big up to all the companies that actually do make those public appearances, that do earnings calls, etc. Right? Good investor relations.
I love the ones that do it, the shareholder meetings online.
Yes.
And actually
or
ask.
Hybrid. Yeah, at least hybrid.
Yeah, or hybrid. Yeah, because like sometimes the shareholder meetings are in the middle of the day. And you can't go to like if you have work, you know. So if you can't always like take leave just to, you know, go to shareholder meeting and such. So I really like ones when you can send questions ahead of time. It's online. Agreed. You can view it after, view it 2 years from now, view it 3 years from now. There's some that like pick up. I think Cygnus is really good with their earnings calls, their shareholder meetings. They have it for both their Cygnus Credit, the private credit company, and then Cygnus Real Estate Finance, the real estate company. You know, I really, that's really good too. I love that. And I even like big up Kalila from Taking Stock. Think about that. Like there've been questions or like sometimes, just find out stuff about a company that you didn't know. I think that's definitely good.
True.
True. I guess one of the things I think is, let's see. I think that you should do with researching a stock is this concept of big up, what's his name? Chris Camille. He talks about the investor, putting on your investor glasses, where it's like you remember that you try to bring investing back to like real life. So say, I remember that's why like maybe a few months ago, someone I know was like, I think my mom was at the airport, the Montego Bay airport. and she was telling me like how packed it was or how expensive the stuff was, and then I was like, hey, like what is, or how are the lines looking and things like that, like, because Express Catering, they run that food court, so it's like
Yeah.
bringing it back to real life. Or I was in the supermarket the other day and I was looking at some of the different teas companies, or just you can just look at the supermarket or insurance company, like, oh, you can remember that your car insurance company, maybe your car insurance company is listed, but maybe their competitor is listed, and you could like look into them to understand about their business. And then there's all kind of things that you can do.
I do that with the supermarket too, because you could even ask
Mm-hmm.
the workers. You'd be like, "Yo, this shelf that's like Purity, it's
Mm-hmm.
always empty. Is it that you guys don't get enough products?" They're like, "No, man, them just sell off quick." And at that
Mm-hmm.
point, you're just like, "Oh, okay."
Mm-hmm.
Or Honey Bun, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those other listed companies. You can talk
Mm-hmm.
to the people. I remember one of the things I said I was going to do, didn't actually end up getting to do it, was to check out RPL's their new
Mm-hmm.
gas station, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just to see, what's the traffic like and so on. Just talk to the security guards on the side, because that's you're doing research.
Mm-hmm.
That's on the ground research. Right? You're
Mm-hmm.
literally talking to the people at work every day and say, "Yo, a lot
Mm-hmm.
of taxis pass through here. Really?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's ever low? It's ever like dull? Or is it that a lot more people are coming?
Mm-hmm.
How about last quarter, like January to March? You think
Mm-hmm.
it increased since then? Yeah, man, it increased, man. They see like at least double now. They might actually hire a new pump attendant." And then you start saying, "Oh,
You say, oh,
okay,
okay, thank you.
connected. Yeah, man." You say,
Quick
"All
buy.
right, yeah, man, no problem. All right, the pump
Or it could go the
attendant
other
good, yeah,
way.
man. Yeah,
Or it could go the
yeah,
other way where you say, no, it's doing horrible. Do this, we have
yeah,
to fire people, we have to do this. Da, da, da. You
yeah."
say,
They
quick
actually had
sell
to let go
this.
the girl,
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
man.
couldn't pay her, like we weren't doing well enough business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
it's
yeah, trying to apply
underground.
it, trying to look at it every day, because you'd be surprised how many things in your real life. I think that's one of the powerful things with, investing, I guess, in a local market.
Yeah.
Or in your local market, because if you're in the US, you could you could go to the Walmart or whatever, go to the Apple store, and you could see things like that with your own eyes.
True, but I think with the Jamaican market, because it's such a smaller market,
Mm-hmm.
it's easier to get information
Mm-hmm.
in terms of those, because
Mm-hmm.
the
I
US is
think
huge.
I think
You would
about like
know how
the
things
size
are
of
doing in
RPL.
Wyoming. Or
Like think about that point when RPL, I think, remember when RPL, I think, had just listed, all of their gas stations were in Westmoreland. So imagine if you list in Westmoreland, if you lived in Westmoreland, it'd be easier to just go to all the gas stations versus a big multinational. Like imagine a US company which is like has gas stations in 50 states or 20 states or 10 states. It's going to be like, you might live in just one state, so it's like, how are you going to
Exactly.
find out? Maybe you could talk to your friends and you can like make a team and say, okay, I'm going to check on this one, you check on this one. But that's one of the powerful things with having, I guess, much smaller companies and also like a smaller country too. So it's easier
Yeah.
for you to go drive to this place to go versus driving across. Imagine there's a shareholder meeting. It's not online, but it's in a different state. You have to drive across the state hours versus
Exactly.
us, where it's like, okay, you have to drive across a parish, but driving across a parish is much easier than
Yeah.
doing driving across a state. So
Another thing I noticed recently too, the first time I usually get like a lot of different drug reps and so on, but the first time I ever got a drug rep from Aria Williams was recently. And I'm just like, I started talking to her and I'm just like, yeah, is this the first time you've been here? She's like, yeah, they're making effort to like go to the different private offices. And I'm like,
remember the drug? What was the drug
it's
specific?
that. It was several drugs.
Anyone
And
stood out to you? Just like blood pressure stuff,
yeah, it's like
diabetes
blood
stuff,
pressure stuff. Yeah, it was the
like
standard
combination
things.
stuff or single.
I think it was just single. I don't recall. I don't know. I was busy, so I didn't. There's only one I remember her talking about and so on. And I think she gave me a flyer for a drug that I've never prescribed. I have the flyer somewhere. It's funny. I actually need to look at that. But it's just it's good to see those kind of things. Like, okay, are they? Maybe I should have asked more questions. Like, are they hiring more drug reps? Are you guys going to a lot more? Those kind of
Yeah, you
things
should
just
have
to
had
see.
your investors glasses on, man.
Right.
Should have put them
I
on.
wish, bro, but I had my doctor glasses on at the time. So all I was meant was the patient. But in that
Yeah.
moment, I was just like, because she came at it was a bad point. It was a point where I finished and I'm ready to kind of leave. And I was late for my next thing.
Bro,
So
it's true you never own shares in Ari Williams. If you
at
had $1
that,
million in there, you'd have said
bro,
no, man.
if no, she would have stayed there for the next half hour, bro. We'd be
Yeah.
talking for a good half hour. I'd be interested
Yeah.
in the drugs you're talking about. I'd be like, you have any samples? You know, because we kind of get samples sometimes as physicians. And you start asking about the company, and so that's how you just like break the ice and get to know and those kind of stuff. So yeah, bro, like that's how I kind of do my research as well, because it's so much easier when you have. Also, another strategy for me is just focus on one stock. Just focus on one thing. Because for me, there's so much noise in the market. It's easier for you to research one thing than be researching 2, 3, 4 things at one time. Just have a goal and say, all right, let's say, or it's just something that you see, like if you're new to investing, let's say you're new to investing, right? And you really just want to get into it. But, you know, the NCB financial stuff, you're not really into learning about NCB and reading all of those things, right? But let's say you're in an industry that you like let's say you're in construction, right? Or let's say you're a chemical engineering student or something like that, and you want to just learn about a stock. You just go on the stock market and say, all right, what's the most similar thing to like construction, XYZ? If it's carb cement, you're like, okay, I use cement a lot or I've learned about the different types of cement and how they work. Some better with like wet surfaces, some blah, blah, blah. And then you understand how it's made. It's so much easier for you to appreciate a company once it's within your industry. So,
like your circle of competence, that's important too.
exactly.
I think
Because
that's
then you'll have that,
edge.
that advantage. What's it called? What's that book called? The Unfair Advantage. I think it's called the Unfair Advantage, right? You'll have that little edge because for us it's medicine. So we look at stocks like Aria Williams and so on, indies. We look at even like a Elite or a IPCL or AKA Apex, those kind of companies, because we kind of understand that business model. We understand where are they getting their patients from, right? Is it government entities doing scans? Has the government cut those kind of? It's so much easier for us to be looking at those things, right? I tell a girl, yo, if you shop in Fontana, just look at Fontana as a stock, right? If you're always in Fontana buying a bunch of stuff, you might as well just look at the stock and see how it makes money. Like, how do they actually make money off of you? And not just you buying all of those things. Is it also pharmaceuticals as well? Are they buying more and setting up more chains? All right, they've set up Fenty a while ago, the Aura, as you mentioned. Aura, I think, is their luxury line. I know, and they just signed an agreement, to distribute Fenty products. Are they gonna distribute other things? Our Telfar bags, Louis Vuitton, are because it's luxury, those kind of things. Chanel bags, Tory Burch
Higher
slippers,
margins.
exactly, precisely. Those kind of things you kind of want to start meddling. Like, okay, once it's within your circle of competence, or not even competence, it's just things you like. Like, suppose it's just things you just like. Like, suppose you're somebody that shops online all the time. Might as well look at a little mail pack and see what mail pack's doing and how they're faring up with this Amazon business and Amazon doing free shipping and all of those kind of stuff. So it's much easier to research, just hone in on one thing that you think you may like, because it gets much easier. A little bit off topic, but it's a similar concept. Like, somebody tweeted recently, and we're into anime. Somebody tweeted that, what anime would you recommend to somebody? And I'm just like, yo, you don't just recommend any good anime to somebody. Like, yeah, some might be really good, or you all say Attack on Titan or something like that. But in reality, you should actually, if you want somebody to get into this, get into investing, get into anime or so on, find out what do they currently like. I find it so much easier. Like, okay, if you like, superhero shows, like you're a big Marvel fan or so on, then I'm gonna recommend a superhero type show for you
My
to
Hero.
watch. My Hero Academia.
Or same thing with investing. Yeah, you apply that to investing. That's why if someone just come up to you and say, yo, which stock I must buy, it's like, it's not that easy, because like, would you be someone who just wants cash flow or dividends and don't mind seeing the stock not move for a while, or are you someone who, like, you want the stock shoot up tomorrow, or like there's a lot of
A
that's
lot
why
that
you
goes
need
into
like a
it.
proper investment advisor. They're supposed to sit down with you, talk to you, understand your personality, your goals, all of that
Mm-hmm.
stuff. It's not as simple as, yeah, man, just buy this, because two people, this stock could be a better buy for this person, this stock is a better buy for this person, and that's it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Real.
I think one of the next things, the points I'd say is that in terms of like how to research a stock, I try to look for change or some things that are big. So it's like, if you think about investing, you want to, I don't, or not even just apply this to life. Like, I don't want to, you shouldn't really be going after something, or maybe not always, or I don't think you should. That, say, for example, you're looking at an opportunity. Let's apply this to investing. So, this stock, if the if say a good outcome, there's like some different like possible paths. There's this outcome that could be good that you'd want. It could cause, you think, that could cause the business to double, triple their profits, and the stock price could maybe double,
Mm-hmm.
right? But then there's this other outcome where it's almost like the good double, triple, but the bad is it goes to down a 90%,
Yeah.
right? Versus looking at another stock where maybe the good, it doesn't go up as much, maybe it goes up 50%, but the bad is, even at worst, it goes up 30%. It's like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that should actually be the better investment. Once that, that good or gain that you could make is that hits your goal. So you shouldn't
Mm-hmm.
always get into things where only if things are good, it works out for you. And then once again, the quote unquote bad outcome, it's like, it's horrible. Versus you can
Yeah.
find things sometimes where the bad outcome is actually still somewhat good. It's like you still get a good return that you're happy with. So it's like either way, you're fine with your investment. You're like, hey, I know this isn't going to zero. It could go to 200, 300%, or maybe at worst it goes up 30%. I'm fine with that versus having to sit and say, yo, what if this goes down 90%? But then it could go up 50%. But I'm like, does that justify it, So
Yeah,
try to
true.
find things where, and I guess this comes back to the whole concept of like a margin of safety. So it's like, okay, yeah, you're looking for things that, even if the best case scenario doesn't work out, it still can be a good investment for you. There's still other things that, you're like, hey, this is, it gives you a good cushion. Like you can sleep at
Mm-hmm.
night having your money in it, you
Yeah,
know?
you can sleep at night for sure.
Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
also, even in terms of like researching a stock, I think it's also good to try to look at companies that people aren't really talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Try to look at companies where not even they're not talking about it, they're not talking about it positively. There's a whole thing
Exactly.
of like distressed asset investment, like investing, like buying companies. If you look at a lot of like millionaires, billionaires, that's how a lot of them made their money. It was, they were buying companies that were like doing horribly, and they
Mm-hmm.
were like, okay, they're doing bad, but there's a specific reason why they're doing bad. And I have the skills, or I know someone with the skills that could fix that. Oh, they just need a
Good
distributor,
management
then
or a good
yeah, or
CEO.
they just need, or yeah, there's something that is fixable,
Mm-hmm.
and you're looking for that, look for those things that could fix. Like you're like, okay, I could just fix this. And then I remember,
Mm-hmm.
you remember on the episode with Jeffrey Hall, he spoke about like the whole, I was at Mavis Bank Coffee Factory, and it was like going through losses and losses, and then they bought it at a discount. Because that's one of the big
Mm-hmm.
things when you're buying these things that are doing bad. A lot of times you're getting a discount or a good price, which almost like decreases your risk. It's like, okay, almost anything, almost any business, or even almost anything, even if the, say the thing is not so good, a big thing in terms of you qualifying, I guess, or evaluating it as an investment is a price you get it at. So
Yeah.
there could be a house in a horrible area. Say the house is worth 5 million,
Mm-hmm.
right? But you don't, maybe for the next, it would take 10 years for it to even go up 6 million. And you're like, yo, 10 years going from 5 million to 6 million, that's a bad investment, or that's not your good return. But what if you're getting the house at 500,000? That then makes it a good investment.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes. So almost anything, think about it, almost anything, you could look at a car and say, yo, that car is horrible. It's old. it's worth $1 million. But if you're getting a car at $10,000, it suddenly becomes a good investment because you're like, yo, even if it's worth $1 million, what if I sell it at 500,000? If I bought it at 10,000, that's a huge gain.
That's a huge
You
gain.
know?
Yeah, it's all value, bro.
Yeah. So
It's
I
all how
think
you look at
that's
things.
also trying to look for things like that where, I guess you have like a good margin of safety. There's a big change coming up. The markets try to like not just look at what people are talking about on Twitter or whatever social medias, TikTok, what stock everyone is talking about. A lot
Yeah,
of
because that's
times
not the
that
whole
stock,
market.
yeah, a lot of
Yeah,
times you want to be looking at the things that people aren't talking about or they're not talking about positively. You also
yeah.
want to double check it. As I've said, do the research, like look at the different sources, go to the company, buy their products. I was like buying some products recently. I went to I went to the Salada Foods shareholder meeting. What was it, earlier this year or last year? And asked some questions and stuff. And because I was seeing that there could have been like I thought it was a possible play for me. Based on what I'm seeing now, I don't think so. And I did put in that research. I asked questions from before I was doing research on the business. I even tested out some of their products. They have this nice pumpkin spice
Yeah, like
thing. Yeah, and
yeah, it's
I even
Mountain Peak.
bought some and I've been adding it sometimes. So I've been having smoothies. I add it. So I'm a customer, I guess. I haven't bought some in a while, but yeah, I bought like 2 packs or so. And there was like this 3-in-1 coffee thing. And yeah, sometimes
Yeah,
one of the big things is that with the research, sometimes you can do the research, put in the hours, and you find that, hey, this isn't for me. And that's just, you don't have to hit the same point we're talking about, like where you don't have to hit all, like it's not like baseball where, if you don't hit any of the balls or whatever, you're gonna get strike in like three. It's not the same way with investing, really. I guess
it's
there's
really not.
inflation and stuff, but it's not. You could sit down on your cash for a year waiting for a good investment and then make that good investment. It's better than just being like, oh no, I have to make an investment, I have to buy this stock tomorrow. But then you didn't actually put in the research and you didn't put in as much time. You didn't understand it, because at the end of the day, it's really a lot of times you're understanding. Yes, there'll be sometimes risks that you can't foresee. Just because investment doesn't work out doesn't mean that it was a bad investment. That's I think one of the hardest things with investing too, because you could, like, say there's a stock and you're like, hey, this company, it's a ticker, a bag juice company, ticker juice, right? You could explain that your thesis for investing in that company to all Buffett, Charlie Munger, the late Charlie Munger, rest in peace, all of those big investors, right? And you could explain the story and explain why you invested in the company to them, and they could agree with you. They say, yes, you should buy that stock, and then the stock could go down. That doesn't mean that you actually made the wrong decision. Like there are times where you make the right decision and you get a bad outcome.
Yep.
Doesn't mean that you shouldn't have done it. Like there's times when you're presented with that same information 10 times, if the 9 other times you present with it, it would have worked out, but you just got somewhat unlucky. And that's I think that's
Happens.
that's definitely hard. Like sometimes you make the right decision and you should make that decision, but there's a concept, I think we've spoke about it before. This book I read maybe like 2 years ago, I think it's Thinking in Bets, where it talks about trying not to do something called resulting, where you look at the result of the decision and say, okay, the decision was bad because I got this bad result. That there are times when the decision was bad, but what can happen is that there's times when the result is bad, the decision was good, so you should actually still make that decision with similar scenarios. And there are times when the result is good, but your decision was actually bad, and you need to like look at that. And that's one of the things that's hard, because it's like
That's
you're
hard.
almost telling you have to be honest with yourself and be like, yo, even though it worked out, I shouldn't have done that. That was too risky. Like
I
that
got
didn't make
lucky.
sense. I should never make that decision again.
Yeah.
you know
And that's something very hard for people to do, because even for me, in the previous episode when I was talking about RPL
mm-hmm.
could have literally, with that fire incident, it could have literally taken a nosedive if it really did affect the company and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have hit my goal ages ago at $3.20.
Mm-hmm.
And I just got lucky enough to sell it at $3.60. So it's just, you're very right. You always have to be evaluating every decision you make and the
Mm-hmm.
reasons why.
Mm-hmm.
I think something I wanted to also bring up was, and it's something we do in Tickers too, is just understanding the players in we call it the
Ecosystem.
ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the entire market, the competitors, what's
Mm-hmm.
the
The
regulatory
industry,
scene,
yeah,
yeah, the
and stuff going around it,
industry,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah, because those things really affect it. Because you're talking about even tariffs, right? Tariffs could affect a lot of companies that are listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. Even in the conversation we
Any
had
stock
with Randy,
exchange.
any stock exchange, that's true. Even the
Mm-hmm.
conversation we had with Randy on chicken tariffs, because we in Jamaica we have a tariff on imported chicken. It's very very
Mm-hmm.
high. I can't remember how high it is. I don't know if it's a
I feel like
hundred
it's a
percent, but
hundred. I feel like it's something like that.
I feel like it's 100. I can't fully remember, but I know it's very high. I know it's like close to about 100%, right?
Mm-hmm.
And imagine that just going, right? What would that do for the local chicken market in Jamaica? Because if chicken is now half price,
Mm-hmm.
all right, will you see a lot more people eating chicken? Will you see a
Mm-hmm.
listed company that has a US set of operations where they can, you know, manufacture chickens and grow chickens? Maybe not manufacture, but rare chickens, cheaper, and export them to Jamaica. Would
Mm-hmm.
that do a good? Would that do good for them, or will the local? It's always good to know that competitive landscape and the industry, because there's so many different things that can affect that company. So you
Mm-hmm.
want to find maybe like the top 5 things that you think could possibly affect the company, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you just watch those things. You'll be looking
Mm-hmm.
out for those things. If Trump whacks another tariff or like something greater than 10% on Jamaica, how will that affect the company you invested in?
Mm-hmm.
If a hurricane comes, right, and blow down all the banana trees again, how would that
Mm-hmm.
influence, Jamaica producers and other, snack companies, or, knock-on effects to like, other companies like, agro processing, Canco, I think. Who owns a piece of Canco? Was it Spur Tree? And so on. So, there are a lot of things that you have to really and truly look out for
Mm-hmm.
in that landscape. But once you know the
Mm-hmm.
landscape, you're good as gold, because there are certain ways you can actually make a ton of money from opportunities that change within the regulations, within the,
Mm-hmm.
just globally. Because imagine you have a manufacturing company,
Mm-hmm.
and the major reason why it's not as profitable is energy costs. And
Mm-hmm.
now you see them investing, millions of dollars into making themselves way more efficient. They put up they're getting, power from like a solar farm outdoors and so on. Like if you see
Mm-hmm.
them figuring that part out, and you
Mm-hmm.
realize, okay, look in the expenses line, and you find electricity costs or something like that, and you see how much money they would actually save. If it's significant enough, okay, this company can definitely turn a much greater profit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and once they execute this plan, they'll become a much more profitable company.
Mm-hmm.
That in and of itself is just like, you know, even when you meds companies that, come to market and they get that tax break, or they come to market because they're trying to pay off debt, and the debt is making them much less profitable, and boom, they
Mm-hmm.
just do that, right? They list, they pay off debt, and they have the
Mm-hmm.
tax break, and now they're way more profitable. So it's
Mm-hmm.
always good to just look at those kind of things when you're researching stocks as well. um
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think one of the final points is also sentiment, because we spoke about a sentiment too.
Mm-hmm.
And it does come from, even like earnings calls and so on, press releases. But you said it. Yes, Twitter may not be the entire market, but it's a good source at least to
Mm-hmm.
gauge,
For the Telegram groups,
their group
sometimes I just
chats.
search a stock name in it. I'm like, have they found out about
Hmm.
this stock yet?
Yeah.
What's their view of it? Okay, they don't care. Like I see the
Hmm.
reports. Report drops, best reports ever. No one mentions it. I'm like, well, okay, I
Silence.
guess I'll just buy.
Sentiment is huge because, retail drives a lot of the market right now.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of want to see, what are the retail investors doing?
Mm-hmm.
What do they think about these companies? Nobody talking about it. Does that mean it's a good time to buy this stock? Are people going to talk about it in the future? Yeah, those are, and even when you have like institutional sentiment to like, our pension funds buying this stuff, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, there are.
I think to kind of sum it up to is like the overall process. So as we mentioned, you try to the research, you're trying to get information. You have all the different sources, try to go through different sources, always go as close to the primary source as possible. Be careful of like Chinese telephone, also throw in a little grain of salt just in case the fact, double check it. Then even when you find that information, you can try to record it somewhere, maybe in a paper, notepad, book, phone, whatever. Also double check it or even check it at that point, because the information could be true 1 year ago, but a year later something changes, to try to double check it occasionally. And also the information that you found that you're like, okay, this thing could be really good for this company, try to see, okay, how many people actually know this? Like, do people actually have people almost priced it in yet? You're searching around, no one's talking about it, no one's talking about the company. The stock has just continued to decrease in price, and then you feel like you've done enough information for you, and then at the end of the day, some people, they want to spend an hour researching, some people they want to spend a year researching. I think you should always spend as much time as you think is reasonable, and also I guess that depends on you and I guess your time, like how much free time you have, how much money you're investing. If you're someone who's just put $1,000 down, 10,000 Jamaican, is that that's maybe a different level of research. That's not a huge portion of your actual money versus someone putting down $1,000,000, especially if that $1,000,000 was a huge portion of their money, because at the end of the day, you won't be able to sleep at night well knowing, okay, I've done a research on this, I understand why this company could do well, I understand that there are these possible risks with it, but I'm okay with those risks because I found something with, I think, a good margin of safety that, okay, even if this thing doesn't work out, still not gonna like go to zero or significantly lose the value.
Yeah.
And yeah, just check it up occasionally. You can always listen to the Limitless Podcast. We'll try to have on sometimes like CEOs, or try to do stock reviews, investor briefings. I always try to like share the investor briefings or things like that, because we can take a clip from it, but it's always good to like watch the full thing.
Yeah, 100%.
And yeah, that's, I think,
yeah, I
some
think
of the process.
Matthew definitely summarized it very, very well. Guys, if you love this episode, smash that subscribe button, leave a like, and comment on other like tips and tricks that you guys do in order to invest in stocks. We would love to hear from you. Thank you guys so much. All right. Limitless out. Peace.